Hello and welcome to the first AGS Inspire Flipped Masterclass. The purpose of this video and the supplementary reading which I will point you to at the end is to give you the main concepts before the session begins, so you can already be thinking about those areas and can maybe do some research, and we then don't have to spend a lot of time going through the basics within the sessions. We can really move it forward at a pace, and we can also have a lot more discussion and group work. It's great because you are able to pause me, stop me, rewind me, throughout the session if you want to, throughout this video, and you may decide that you want to pause at various points, take some notes, and feel free to bring those notes with you to the into the session. And also, I will point you towards some reading as well, and you may decide you want to print that reading and bring it with you. That's great. I would also advise you, if you've got any questions or anything that maybe wasn't very clear, write those questions down and bring those with you as well, because these sessions we're hoping for them to be as bespoke as we possibly can make that. So if you've got any questions that have been raised by any of the content in this video or any of the blogs you read, then feel free to bring those with you. Okay, let's get started then with the importance of questioning. I have mentioned numerous times in school already since Easter about how I feel questioning is an essential part of good and outstanding learning, and I think it holds everything together in the lessons. I've picked out three basic features really that I think questioning achieves in our lessons. I'm just going to go through each one of those now, just as a little introduction. I think the first thing it does, it helps us assess levels of understanding. And I think that's very, very important when we are looking to see whether our students have made progress, and also, and we'll come back to this later on, actually whether we can move on further into the lesson and we can move past the first topic or onto a second topic or something of a higher order skills. So it's important that we can use questioning effectively to actually assess whether our students have gained that knowledge. Secondly, I think it's really important to stretch and challenge our students, and we can really use it. If we use questioning properly, we can really stretch them and challenge them with deeper questioning, and we can differentiate that to the needs of the students in front of us. And thirdly, we can use it to create curiosity and intrigue in our students. And I think that really well placed and skillful questioning can really get our students engaged and to be thinking about the answers. And we don't have to give those answers straight away. We could potentially leave them just thinking for a little while, and maybe not necessarily giving the answer in that lesson, but actually letting them think over a week, and not giving the answer till the week after, and really hook them into their learning. So those are the main 3 points. And I also think that something I read last week was that a nice point saying that if questioning is done really, really well and really effectively, then it can leave students thinking about that topic way past when that question was actually asked. I think that's the point we're trying to make, that actually we can get our students to be intrigued and engaged outside of the lesson as well, by thinking about those questions on the way home or at night, and really trying to think more deeply and process those answers. So I think that's really important. However, like anything we do in the classroom, and like anything in education, it's only effective if we use it effectively. And I want to look at some different strategies to use in the classroom, which we're going to be talking about in the session. Before we move on to that though, I just want to throw some stats and some figures at you. Some of the research that I've been looking at recently suggests that as teachers we actually ask between 300 and 400 questions per day. I think that's quite an enormous amount of questions. But I think when you step back and we think about, well, how often are we asking questions per lesson? We really need to make sure that we get these questions right, because if we're asking nearly 400 questions a day, we've got to make sure that they are high quality questions. The research also suggests that in terms of our instructions that we give out, up to 80% of our instructions are actually question based. So it's really, really important that we don't just take it for granted that we'll ask questions when we feel like it, but actually we start to think in more depth about the type of questions we're asking, how we structure those questions, and how we want to have responses from students, because I truly believe that it is really, really important to move our learning forward. Okay, in all of this, one thing that I really want for us to crack here at Acklam is a no hands up approach to answering questions. And I've touched on this in the last few days in the PD days, but I think that all the three strategies I'm about to show you all require students to have their hands down and for you to be in control of the questioning. And I just want to run through some points here of why I feel this is really, really important that we don't have our students putting their hands up. Firstly, if we've got students with their hands up, it only really, students can only, one person can only answer a question at a time, and it's really a one-to-one thing that you ask a question, a student puts a hand up, that student answers the question. It's a one-to-one process. It doesn't really let a lot of other people get involved in that. Secondly, also, what normally happens is that the answer is given before a lot of students have even had a chance to process their own answer in their minds. And I'll come back to wait time in a little bit in the session, and I've already mentioned it, I think, in the PD days. But we need to make sure that we involve lots more people, and it's not just a one-to-one process. The other thing is that students can opt out, and I mentioned this the other day as well. That actually, if we're only going to ask students to answer questions who have their hands up, then any student that doesn't want to answer just simply doesn't put their hand up, and they are normally not targeted. And students can catch on to this, obviously, and it's too easy for them to opt out. Whereas if you're in control of the questioning, you're in control of who answers those questions. You can actually target certain individuals, and it may be you want to target them for a behaviour reason, because you think they haven't been listening. So it starts to catch them off guard a little bit. It may be you want to differentiate it, because of the style of the question, or the difficulty of the question. So you should be in charge of that, and we have no hands up at all. It also, I think, if we do have hands up, the less competitive students start to retreat and shy away, because they may, they may not like that whole competitive edge of, the first hand up gets to answer the question, and it's all kind of sort of a bit of a rat race in the classroom. So a lot of those students tend to sort of think, well, I won't put my hand up, and I'll just wait and see what happens. So it starts to exclude a lot of those students. And lastly, questioning in the classroom when we've got our hands up is normally linked to short, closed questions where we expect a sort of 1 word or 2 word answer, very rapid fire. And I think if we can get out of the habit of doing this, then we can really move forward, and our questioning can be so much more effective, so much deeper, and can lead to really raising the outcomes of our classrooms. So that's what I'd like, is a complete no hands up approach. And I think that actually, when you look at the 3 strategies I'm going to show you, they don't work if kids have got their hands up. They don't give kids time to think, and all we end up doing is reverting back to type, which is we ask a question, kids put their hand up immediately, we go to someone very, very quickly, we get an answer, and we move on. And it's just all sort of real rapid fire, short, sharp, closed questioning at a very low level order. And this is about exploring how we can do things differently. So the first strategy we're going to look at is pause, pounce, and bounce. And this is a great strategy really for extending wait time, and also for you controlling the questioning. So the way we do it is, you would pose a question. Very, very simple. You've got a question, you pose it to the whole class, and the class are trained and they know that it's a no hands up approach. So we're not having kids putting their hand up immediately. So then we pause and we give our students some wait time. And I mentioned I would come back to this. The research suggests that the average wait time in a classroom between the question being asked and an answer being given is less than 1 second. And we really need to extend that, because all that happens is, if we don't have any wait time, then we don't have any really high level responses. And the research has got lots of evidence to suggest that the longer the wait time, the more structured the answers are. The deeper level of response we get, the level of literacy used within the response is a lot higher, and we then start to include everyone, because what happens is that every single person in the classroom is thinking about that response, because they know that you could pounce on anybody. They know that it's a no hands up approach, so they know that they could be asked next. You're giving them wait time. It's not competitive. So everyone is sat, everyone is thinking deeply about the answer. So that's fantastic. The next part then is to pounce. So you then decide to pounce on whoever you want. And you can choose as to whether or not you differentiate that. So you may decide to pounce on somebody of a lower ability in your class to start with, because they may give you an answer to start with. And you, what you can do is then you can then bounce it to somebody else, and you may decide to bounce the answer to someone with a higher ability in your classroom who may have a higher target rate, because you might want them to extend the answer, or to move that answer forward, or if it's a series of you're going to ask them which 5 factors, and so you may start with giving people of a lower ability a chance to start with, to get one of those 5. When it comes to the last one that's quite hard, you bounce it to someone of a higher ability. So this is it's a great way to involve everyone. It lets you extend that wait time, and I think the longer the wait time, the better. If you're giving 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 seconds, you're letting students formulate those answers. So give this a go in your classrooms, and we're certainly going to be talking about this in the session on Tuesday. And if you've used pause, bounce, pounce, bounce, then speak. I'd like people to be interactive on in the session, and to talk about how effective they've thought it's been, and does it work better with certain groups than others. So yeah, there's also some further reading to do on this, which is in the dig deeper section of the lesson of the TED lesson, and there's a blog post purely and simply on this strategy. So I would advise you to go and read that as well, to get a bit more of an in-depth view. Alright, the second strategy that we are going to look at now is think, pair, share. And again, this relies on a no hands up approach. And what happens here is we pose the question, we give our students time to think. So again, with that whole idea of wait time, and then we ask them then with their partner to discuss it, and to discuss it with share their views with their partner. And this is really, really powerful. And it wasn't until I'd read the blog post that I'm going to direct you to. It wasn't until I'd read that I started to realise how important this pairing is. Because to start with, what it does, it creates what's classed as a safety bubble. Because the two people sat next to each other can actually talk about their answers, and they're not then sharing it with the class at the moment. So it may be a fairly difficult question, and the two students may be actually saying, well, I'm not really sure, or I don't know, or one of them could even be saying, listen, I wasn't even listening, I didn't quite catch that, or I didn't get what he meant. And in that little safety bubble of the pair, they can discuss that, and in those 1 or 2 minutes you give them or 30 seconds, or however long you decide, depending on the difficulty of the question, they can actually talk that through. And the great thing is that as we always know, 2 heads are better than 1. So what's going to happen is they're going to start to come up with an answer that they're probably they think that is actually going to be a good answer. And it may be that they start to have some debating in there. They may have you may have 2 strong people in there that are actually debating that their answer is better than another. Now that's fantastic communication skills, because they need to have one answer that they're going to share with the group. When you bring the group back. So there's a lot of skills that go on in there that we initially don't necessarily see from the outside. And a wonderful thing from it as well is that it's easier if both students there don't know what the answer is. It's easier at the end. It's far easier, as we all know, to say we don't know rather than I don't know. And when you're picked on your own and you don't know something, it's quite difficult to say I don't know. But it's a whole lot easier to say, listen, we've thought about this and we don't know, or we're not sure. And students are far more confident in expressing that than they are, just on their own. And then when you bring the group back, you get those pairs to share their ideas. And the beauty of this is that the students have already rehearsed their answer. They've already talked about it with each other. They've already processed that information, and they've already said this answer out loud. So actually, when they then say it to the group, you're going to get a more articulate response, because you've already rehearsed that, they've already thought it through, they've already talked about it, and quite possibly a lot more confident, because their partner has maybe agreed with their answer as well. So when they say it back to the group, they already know at least one person that in the room agrees with them, and so the chances are that a lot more people will agree with them. Whereas if you ask a question and you get a student to answer it immediately, that student is saying an answer that they have no idea if anyone in the class agrees with. So confidence can be quite low there. Hence why we get so many people saying, I don't know, I'm not sure, when actually deep down they probably do know, or they think they know. but their confidence isn't letting them actually answer it because they're not really sure if anyone else agrees with them. Whereas in this process, it gives students a lot more confidence. So give it a go in your class. Think, pair, share. See if it makes a big difference. Research suggests that it really does. It suggests we get high-level responses, more articulate responses, more confidence. And who wouldn't want that from our students? Okay, the last strategy we're going to look at is ABC, and this really can apply to the first two strategies as a kind of as an add-on, as a bolt-on, and it's add, build, and contest. And this is great because, for instance, in the first one, the pause, pounce, and bounce, you may decide that after you've pounced on someone, you want to bounce it across to someone, and you want to say, can you add to that, or can you build on that answer? Or it may be, do you want to contest that? Do you want to challenge it? Is that right? And you may throw a few curveballs in a few times, and even though you know the answer is right, you may just say to someone every now and again, do you want to challenge that, or do you want to contest that? And when it does, it puts the doubt in the mind. It gets them to really think, well, actually, was it really right? Was that a correct answer? Did I really agree with it? And then they may just say, yeah, no, I'm fine, I agree with it. Oh, that's great. Can a student add to a question? So this is where you can differentiate it. You may start by pouncing on somebody of a lower ability, and you may then start to bounce it across them. And, can you add to this? Can you build on it? And you may be asking people that have a higher ability, who have a higher target grade, and get them to really take that answer forward and to build on that answer and to make that answer into an A grade answer. Or an A star answer, or a level 7 answer, or whatever it is, depending on which kind of class you have. It's great, and I think that just by remembering ABC, you can use that at any point in the classroom, and you can really take ownership and take charge of the questioning. But again, it all relies on you being in control of the questioning, having no hands up, and you being able to fire the questioning around, and you ask whoever you want to add, build on it, contest on it. So it all comes back to you being in control, and not the students being in control of the answering. Right. Before the next session, before Tuesday when you come to the session, I want you to think about how often you actually plan for questioning. And it's something that until I did the research on questioning about a year ago at my old school when I was doing something there, I hadn't really planned for many questions. I asked a lot of questions, and I probably asked 400 questions a day easily, but none of those were really planned. They were all kind of on the fly, on the hoof as I went through the lessons. But I never had questions that were really written down in my schemes of learning and lesson planning, and it really opened my eyes to that I was missing a trick really, and I was missing my questioning being as effective as it could be. So I just want you to think now. How often do you actually plan for questions? How often do you have what they call hinge questions in your lessons? And hinge questions are questions where you really it hinges on that lesson moving forward, and it's a real progress kind of question that you ask the students, and you get responses, and you're able to process those responses pretty quickly, so that you know whether the students have actually understood the topic, they have that deep understanding, and that you can really move forward in the lesson to the next part because they're able to progress. And I think if we don't plan for those, then we're really never giving ourselves the chance to be as effective as we can be. And if we go right back to the start of the session and we think about what I said about how important questioning is, then if it's that important, and if we ask that many a day, then we really need to be spending more time thinking and planning about questioning, because it is such an important tool in our armoury as teachers. So what I would like you to do is I'd like you to bring with you, for discussion around your table, examples of when you have planned for questions. Now that may be in a lesson plan, or it may be in a scheme of learning and progress. But I'd like you to bring those with you so you can actually share those with people from the other faculties, because the session, like I said, with it being a flipped masterclass, it is more about discussion and a different type of learning rather than just me talking to you on Tuesday. If you haven't planned for questions before, then maybe you can think over the next day or so about maybe when and where you're going to plan for questions. Are you going to plan for questions in schemes of learning? Are there questions that really start topics off? Are there questions that you want to plan for after 10 minutes in your lesson, after 20 minutes, or as a plenary? I don't know. This is really to provoke some thought in you, so that you can really take this forward and think more deeply about your own questioning. Right, the further reading, I have three or four blog posts that I'm going to direct you to, and you'll find those in the Dig Deeper section of the as you're looking at the screen probably now on the panel on the right hand side. So you've watched the video now. You may have paused it. You may have taken some notes. I've given you some things to think about. I'd really like you to read the next, the 3 or 4 blog posts that I'm going to link to in there. They're not that long, but they take a little bit more detail. They link to what I've said, and it'll hopefully let the ideas sink in a bit more, and for you to see how teachers across the UK are using this in their own classrooms. Feel free, like I said, to bring any questions to the session on Tuesday. If you want to ask any questions before then, drop me an email. Otherwise, hope you've enjoyed the first video, and feel free to to watch it as many times as you want, to read the post, and to do a lot of thinking before Tuesday, so we can really get into the complexities of questioning. And I want it to be as interactive as possible. So I want people to be providing their views, providing experience, potentially showing different people different documents you've got, and for us to really be using all that fantastic practice that we've already got at Acklam, and really moving things forward, so we can all be there ready for to promote good and outstanding learning in our classrooms. So thank you very much indeed, and I will see you on the session on Tuesday.